Good evening, everyone. At the onset, let me thank all of you for such a wonderful response to my previous video. It is really, really heartening to see that most of us, we are quite focused upon what we are supposed to do for our students. So, thank you so much. And once again, a very, very warm welcome to my channel, Eloquent English Enterprise. And a bigger welcome to the new subscribers, right? And once again, before I begin with today's video, let me request you to give me more likes and more view time because that is what makes me feel a little successful in my attempts. Okay, so today, what are we going to discuss? What's on the cards for today? Something really, really interesting. I'm sure as kids you would have heard words like psychology, air, debt, right? Watch, night. So, what's common with all of these words? Any guesses? Okay. These words have silent letters. Psychology has a very obvious P. Rain, REIGN, but the G is missing. Debt, DEBT, but B is not to be heard. Plumber, spelled as PLUMBER, but B is silent. So why? If we are not pronouncing a letter, if its sound is not evident, why? Why are we using those letters in the words that they are being used in? So that's the topic for today's presentation. And let's start off so that we keep it short and crisp. Okay, so here's my screen, which I'll share with you. Yeah, so a very, very warm welcome to my channel once again. And let's start off with the presentation. Okay, silent but significant. The invisible voices, right? What are these? So let's explore the silent letters in the English language or in the English alphabet and the mystery behind the usage of these silent letters in our language. Okay, firstly, if we look at the history and evolution of these words, it is, let me just move myself onto one side. Okay. This refuses to go. Okay. So there are two, three reasons. In fact, there are quite a few. So I'm going to discuss them one by one. It's because of the Old English influence. Like, for example, there was a phonetic spelling and pronunciation. Like, for example, in the Old English, which was Anglo-Saxon, it was a phonetic language, meaning words were spelled as they are pronounced. Okay, there were no silent letters which existed initially because every letter was sounded. Like even if it was HONEST, it was honest. It wasn't honest the way we pronounce it now. For example, some lost sounds, now silent letters. The night, KNIGHT, it was pronounced as knight, right? In those days, it was pronounced as knight. Same is with GNAW. We pronounce it as no, but in those times it was pronounced as gno. Okay, the G was very evident. And similarly, wrist, WRIST was wrist. Okay, but with the passage of time, because language also evolved, so it became wrist, but the letter stayed. It wasn't changed. And how did these silent letters emerge? Over time, the difficult consonant clusters like KN and GN were simplified. And by the Middle English period, the speaker stopped pronouncing these consonants, which were a little difficult to pronounce, but the spelling continued. Then there was French and Latin borrowings, like some words were introduced from French and Latin. So this was after the Norman conquest in 1066 AD. And there was some introduction of silent letters from French after the Norman conquest. For example, like a few of these French borrowings, I just said honest. It was Honeste. So it was a long word. So the last E was omitted, but honest state. So earlier it used to be honeste, but now it's become honest. Similarly, debt, which I just mentioned a while ago, it also comes from French roots because it was a French word called dette, Dette, but the silent B was later reintroduced to match its Latin counterpart, debitum. All right, so dette and debitum were put together to make debt. Again, subtle, Subtle. We omit the B sound. We pronounce it as subtle because this silent B was introduced or it was restored because of its Latin cousin, which was subtilis. Okay, so from subtle, it actually came from subtilis, which is a Latin word. And the reason why these silent letters were retained, because the French scribes, they introduced new spellings which followed French conventions, and also because many of these words were originally pronounced as consonants, but later they were dropped in speech. Then came the phonetic shift, the great vowel shift, which happened between the years 1400 to 1700 AD. So there was a great vowel shift. And of course, this little cartoon says blah, blah, blah. This was a major phonetic transformation in which long sounds changed dramatically in Middle English, shifting towards modern pronunciation. And there was a big impact on silent letters. Some consonants that were once pronounced became silent as the vowels shifted. For example, K and I, GHT, the K was made silent and so was GH. So K and I, GHT became simply night. Daughter, DAUGHTER. Here again, the GH sound disappeared. So it became daughter. GH was dropped. The spelling of words remained unchanged, but the pronunciation changed, and this led to the coming of silent letters. This was basically to make the pronunciation simplified. Then came to for the previous slide. I'll go back to that. Simplification of pronunciation, that is the dropping of sounds over time. Over centuries, English speakers simplified word pronunciations by dropping difficult sounds, but their spellings remained unchanged. For example, I've already mentioned night and also wrist, the W was dropped, and in no, the G was dropped, GNAW. And the examples of the silent GH, I've already mentioned daughter. So even in other words like light, right, fight. So the GH disappeared. Okay, it just remained as light, bright, whatever. So no GH was to be pronounced. The standardization of spelling. Okay, the role of printing, it contributed in the standardization of spelling, and this standardized the silent letters in the English alphabet. With the advent of the printing press, English spelling became more fixed and standardized. Before printing, the spelling was inconsistent. I mean, if you have read Chaucer, you would agree with me that the spellings were atrocious and it was really difficult to read or study the prologue to the Canterbury Tales because, lip was Lippe and fall was Falle. So we, we used to make fun and we said lippe folle. But of course, keeping the jokes aside, it was lips and fall. So it was quite inconsistent. The spellings were quite inconsistent because they gave more emphasis to pronunciation and less to writing. But when the words became printed it was difficult to change. So to have a more uniform spelling system, even the pronunciation continued to evolve, and this played a very crucial role in the preservation of silent letters in English. Of course, from fall, the E was removed. From lips, the extra P and E were removed. But still, like in words like hope, rope, the E stayed on. It's still there, though it is not pronounced. So, how did actually printing standardize the silent letters? Fixed spelling, despite phonetic changes, were there. Before printing, English was largely phonetic, and words were spelled as they were pronounced. Okay, so the words were there as they were pronounced, but over time, the pronunciation changed, but the spelling remained unchanged due to printed text. For example, again, night, K-N-I-G-H-T, and this stayed. So the K was not to be pronounced, the GH was not to be pronounced, but the spellings stayed, and the pronunciation became night. Okay, etymology and meanings. Okay. Um, Before this, also there was influence of scholars and Latinization. There were dictionaries, so the words were standardized, and of course there was French influence and fixed spellings. So the silent letters often indicate the origin or root of a word. So we started differentiating words because of the roots from where they evolved. There are certain silent letters which have an origin, which have certain root words. Like, for example, in doubt, D-O-U-B-T, the B comes from its Latin counterpart, which is dubitare, D-U-B-I-T-A-I-R-E, meaning question, to question. Then in psychology, the P, it comes from the Greek psyche, P-S-Y-C-H-E, which means soul or mind. Similarly, uh, gnome, Gnome. It is supposed to be a fairy kind of person or a creature. So Gnome also pronounced as gnome. It originates from the Greek gnosis, Gnosis, which means knowledge. So this is how some different words came from their foreign counterparts. They were differentiated words with similar sounds, but the spellings were different. Uh, also, sec. Now, the influence of scholars. The scholars reintroduced silent letters to standardize English spelling according to their Greek and Latin counterparts. And of course, a lot of words were introduced in other fields also, like medicine, science, and philosophy. Okay, so now we come to some words where there was Latin influence and Greek influence, which I have already mentioned in the previous slides. So now we have some words which have been grouped, to identify word groups or origins. Like, for example, we have some words again beginning with K, but the K is not pronounced. For example, knife. And also a word like wrong, which starts with a W, but the W remains silent. So there are certain homophones also which are differentiated. For example, nights, the normal night, Night, and Knight, they are both pronounced as night, but they are homophones. Similarly, Write and Right, they are both, they sound the same, they are homophones, but their spellings and meanings are entirely different. So, to summarize, we can say that silent letters in English are the result of what? Linguistic history, phonetic evolution, and a desire to preserve etymology and meaning. It's etymology and meaning. So, they exist in English because of the language's history, how its sounds have changed, and the wish to keep track of word origins and meanings. They have all been combined to preserve them, even when they are no longer pronounced. Okay, so there are varied reasons why there are still silent letters when we write English words. And I've given you enough examples. I'm sure you'll be able to, make out now why, though it used to be a very mind-boggling kind of situation where we would not understand why there were these letters which were silent. So thank you so much for watching the channel and this presentation. Uh, I hope I could add some meaning to this particular mystery. I could, unravel the mystery to some extent. So keep watching Eloquent English Enterprise. And now I'll be back with, some literary analysis of certain chapters from grade 12, because the English paper of grade 12 is still there. 10th is over, but the 12th class paper is there. So I'll be back with at least two chapters within 2 days, maybe tomorrow itself. So please be there, wait for me. I hope it's going to be beneficial to you as teachers and to your students for their exam. So it's me signing off. Bye bye, take care, and a very good night. Bye.